you're a man of, you wear many hats. So you so you go through MEd 1987 to 1990.
Yeah.
That's when he graduated MEd 1990. And then you become a lecturer 91.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2001 you become a professor.
Yeah.
In your, how old were you? 30?
40 something, maybe
40.
my early 40s. Yeah.
That's pretty early to become a professor.
Yeah, it was, those days it was early.
Yeah.
A lot of the people in the medical school used to call me Professor Manyanga because it was not that common. Most people would become professor in their 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
But I did manage to become a professor in my 40s.
Is that normally, how long does it take for someone to go from lecturer to professor? And then, yeah, what was that about?
In the ideal situation,
yes,
you should spend 3 years in every post.
Okay.
So if you are in the ideal situation, doesn't happen.
Yeah.
For example, you would be 3 years, you would be eligible to become a senior lecturer.
Okay.
3 years, you'd be eligible to become an associate professor.
Oh.
3 years, you'd be eligible to become a full professor. But the real thing is, these days, it takes, maybe you'll be a lecturer for 10 years. And I did stay as a senior lecturer, because actually I became a senior lecturer within 5 years. But as a lecturer, I think I stayed for about 9 years, because the university didn't advertise. Yeah.
So between 91, when you become a lecturer, and now, that's 30?
Yeah.
30 something years.
Yeah,
so you basically
I'll be 32, I'll have done 32
years.
years by the end of this year in the university.
And I know you were the second cohort of ENT.
Yes, the first cohort had 2 students. Then our cohort, I think we were 6 students, 3 Ugandans and 3 Kenyans. Yeah.
So were you the first Kenyan? There must have been other ENT surgeons.
There was one Kenyan. By the time we joined, there was only one Kenyan African ENT surgeon.
Okay.
So by the time we qualified, now we were among the third. The second one qualified in 1989. Then we qualified in 1990.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why did you choose to teach?
A very interesting story, maybe. Because like I said, we had only one African ENT surgeon. He was actually initially working in Kenyatta, joined the university when we joined the program. So there were only 2 ENT lecturers. The Professor Bal was an Indian, and this African ENT. But in Kenyatta, they had 3 ENT surgeons. One was a Romanian lady married to a Kenyan. The other one was an Indian gentleman, and there was another Indian gentleman. So there were about 6 ENT surgeons. Now, when we joined, one of those guys removed part of the microscope that, the side view of a microscope so that you can do, and he resigned. Mainly because he didn't want to teach us, and he went with this piece of microscope. The other guy did not want to teach us, so he used to teach nurses instead of teaching. In theater, imagine you are a registrar, somebody is doing a knee surgery, and you are standing there. Instead of him showing you, he's calling the nurse to show. So despite all this, we did qualify, and because of that, I made up my mind that I must teach, because no other Kenyan ENT surgeons must go through this. And then a chance encounter one night with the then Senior Deputy Director of Medical Services, who used to have his drink at the Public Service Club. After I finished, one of the clubs that doctors used to join is the Public Service Club. It was quite cheap, so I had just joined. And as we were sitting with this guy around the counter with other people, this guy says, somebody says, this is Dr. Macharia. He's one of the few ENT surgeons in this country. This guy says nonsense. There are many ENT surgeons in this country. So we get into an argument. Remember, he's the Senior Deputy Director. We get into an argument with him, and I tell him, actually, there are no ENT surgeons. We are 5 African ENT surgeons now, and there are 3 Asians. So he says no. He was the one in charge of training. He says no. We've given lots of scholarships for people to train in ENT. I told him, he was called Dr. Kanani. I said, Dr. Kanani, I think you are mistaken. We got into such a bad argument with him. He invited me to visit his office the following day so that he could show me that they have sponsored. And sure enough, he got his file out. And they had given scholarships almost every year for people to go and train in ENT. But guess what? They were not Africans. And these people, they went and none of them came back. He was forced to apologize to a very junior doctor when I pointed this out. Now, when I learned that, again, it reinforced my desire to join the university and teach. And so I was posted initially in Machakos as the provincial ENT surgeon for Eastern. But I only lasted there for 6 months. Then I was employed in Kenyatta for another 6 months, then joined the university. So I think that was my destination. Yeah.
I think the reason it's important that we've taken the time we've taken, because I'm sure the people want to hear about your equity escapades and the shiny life we are seeing now. But I think it's very important that we see the journey and the process, what it's taken for us to admire the Daktari who chairs a bank today. But it sounds like all through your career, so you become a lecturer, but you're still setting up your private practice. You're in the leadership of professional bodies. So you've always done multiple things, which I find extraordinary. I think a lot of doctors, or the doctors we know, are very narrow in their, medical practice is their life. So what informed that, there's a book called Range by a man called David Epstein. So you seem to have range, just having diverse experiences and leaning into that diversity of new challenges.
I think that must have started when I was very young. Like I told you, even when I was in high school, I could do both art, science. I was in the school leadership. I was the head boy, and I'm doing all the other things. I was chairing clubs in high school, from young Christian students to debating to dancing. Yes, so I have always had diverse interests, and I say that I always find I thrive when I am challenged. So I find all these things challenging me, and I want to do the best in all of them. And so even in medical school, after leaving, setting up my private practice, being working in Kenyatta, working in the university, being a leader in the Kenya ENT Society, in the African ENT Society. All those, I think, I feel like they all came naturally. Yeah.
So would you recommend that, just the thing of exploring over super specializing? Because now medicine, you can't even just be orthopedic surgeon. You have to be a foot surgeon, and then you have to really super specialize. So what is your...
There is a role. Every person will find their place. And that's why I told you, run your own race. There are people who are good as generalists. And there will always be there will always be the need for a generalist, whether he's a general practitioner, whether he's a general surgeon, whether he's a general ENT. You understand? So you find your place. And it's really not difficult to find your place. Many times, if you follow your heart, it will lead you to the right place. Sometimes you follow your mind, then your mind digresses into analyzing what is the return on investment. Yes? So you find you want to be a super specialist because there is money there. So you end up being a super specialist, but you're not really very refined. So you don't succeed. Whereas if you're doing general things, and the super more difficult things you send to your colleague who is gifted in that particular area, you'll thrive. Not only don't you thrive, because your outcomes may not be very good, it depresses you. Because you're comparing yourself to somebody who's getting the superstars. And every Nini will have a superstar. And if you're not in that superstar league, you may feel, because that's where you want to be. But if you did really what your heart enjoys, what you like doing, then you find you always thrive. And I think that is very, very important. We all cannot be super specialists. Who will refer the patients to that super specialist? Do you understand? There has to be a GP, and you can be a fantastic GP. Patients will trust you. They'll come to you because you help them make their medical decisions. They'll come and you tell them, look, you have arthritis. I have given you medicines, but I think it's time we referred you to a specialist. You have sinusitis, you have allergy. I think you need a specialist to look after your allergies. They are more complicated than normal allergies. And you find that patients will love you for that. You don't have to be, you can't be everything. Even when you are a super specialist, if you are in the ENT, you are an otologist, it means that you have to refer somebody to the rhinologist. You won't take care of everything. So there is a place for every one of us.
Wow. I think that's radical, because we are being told to make decisions based on return on investment. But Prof is saying, follow your heart. I think that's a radical opinion in 2023, but great advice. So tell us about the business of healthcare, the talks you've been having with doctors. And maybe before that, it would be nice for you to give us just broadly, what do you think of the state of healthcare? This is the last few questions before we open it up to the people. Yeah, what is, I mean, looking at us, we are getting into this profession at a very different time than when you got into it. So just what are your broad thoughts from all the places that you see it, looking into the healthcare system in this country, and then about entrepreneurship in healthcare, based on also your experience as an entrepreneur?
First, there are huge challenges in the healthcare space in this country. And the huge challenges are mainly on resource allocation. And when you talk about resource allocation, you talk about not just financial resources, you talk about human resources, you talk about infrastructure. There's a lot of disconnect between what the citizens expect and what is provided. Remember that 50% of healthcare in this country is provided by the private sector. About 45 to 50%, the government is not able to provide adequate healthcare. Now, whereas there is a problem in adequate resource allocation, there is misallocation of resources. There isn't good husbandry in what is allocated for healthcare. So you will find, if you look at per capita allocation, yes, it is not great. The government may say allocates about 5% of the budget, right? According to the Lagos Declaration, it should be about 15%. But that, as it may be, in the public health care space, we are not able to stretch the shilling because of poor husbandry. So sometimes it's not just that there are no resources, that the resources that are allocated, they are not prudently used. Now, if you go to our hospitals, for a long time, they were completely very poorly kept. Cleanliness in a hospital was at its lowest. Yet, you'll find the largest cadre in that hospital are what are called subordinate staff. What is it they lack to clean the floors? It's more of a mindset and an attitude. You know, we have the Swahili saying, the way we talk about mali ya umma, public money, which means mali ya umma, nobody has responsibility for it. Nobody is accountable for it. So whatever is allocated is not used well. But you find that it is not just in healthcare, it is something that permeates the whole of our public care system. But healthcare stands out because when somebody is sick and cannot get the care, it stands out because it is maybe life-threatening than the child that needs education and doesn't have a book. So healthcare brings into sharp focus our inadequacies as a nation. So the state of healthcare is, to say the least, poor. When healthcare was devolved, it came in, there was a hope that taking healthcare decisions closer to the people will improve it. But the problem is, the flamers of devolution of health did not ring fence the health budget in a county. So a county can allocate 2% of their budget to healthcare. Another county can allocate 7%, another one 10%. So because of that misallocation of resources, you will find, for example, county governments, they will build health centers. We have seen glad buildings being opened, even just the other day, one was being opened in Kirinyaga. And the question is, will that grad hospital deliver services to the people of Kirinyaga? So we have put a lot of emphasis on the hardware without putting adequate emphasis on the software. And that is what, in my opinion, ails the healthcare service. We need to think much more in terms of the software of healthcare. And that software is in terms of what we provide the doctors with the resources. Now, the University of Nairobi, for example, has trained a lot of specialists. Many counties will boast about having an ENT surgeon, a gynecologist. But how much work do those specialists put in? Yesterday I was in a forum where I had a few governors who were there, and there was a question of healthcare and at specialist level. And I just posed one question: how many of them have audited the work of their specialists? How many of them have provided the infrastructure for their specialists? So you post an ENT surgeon, all he can do is adenoids and tonsils. He doesn't have equipment to do ear surgery, doesn't have equipment to do laryngeo surgery. So patients are still being referred to Kenyatta from all over the country. But there are ENT surgeons all over. So a county will boast of having specialists in every field. But are the people in that county getting value from having these specialists? Because of infrastructure, just infrastructure challenges. So we need to be able to address that. We need to be able to be very frank and audit the services that these people give. So they blame doctors that doctors are spending time in their clinic. But if they go to the hospital and there is nothing, what will they do? You understand? So that is a big issue.
So how does entrepreneurship then meet these gaps? Now,
for those doctors, when you look at business, why does a business thrive? Businesses thrive because they solve problems. If you want to make money in any business, identify a problem, solve that problem. That business will thrive. So when you look at, like I said, 45% to 50% of healthcare is delivered by private practice, by private practitioners or mission hospitals. It means there is an opportunity there for those doctors who have an entrepreneurial mind to fill that gap. But for you to provide, to differentiate yourself as a health entrepreneur, you must think differently. You must put on the hat of an entrepreneur. Not because you are a doctor and you can open a clinic. Opening a clinic is not entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship goes beyond. Because you want to open a clinic, you want to deliver a service. How do you deliver an efficient service? How do you get a return from your investment? How do you grow value in that clinic? So you have opened a clinic because you see other people have opened clinics and they have done well. What will differentiate that clinic? Will that clinic be there in 10 years, in 20 years? Will it have grown? Or are you going to, because you are a general practitioner, what you start giving your patients today, in 20 years, you're giving the same medicine? Yes? When I qualified, as a medical officer, the commonest drug we used to treat hypertension was Aldomet. Now, my colleagues who maybe are in GP and they opened a clinic, some of them will still prescribe Aldomet. The only medicine they know that has changed is what they have learned from drug reps. They have not purposely, they have not purposed to keep up. They have not purposed to educate themselves. Now, an entrepreneur will always scan the environment. What are the risks? What are the challenges? The risk of an entrepreneur today, if in whichever field, is the fact that somebody else will come tomorrow, start the same business, use modern technology, and put you out of business. And it has happened. Why is Kodak no longer in business? Do you understand? Why is Nokia no longer in business? Because there were no entrepreneurs. There were no people who scanned the horizon and innovated in good time. So when you are a healthcare entrepreneur, you must be a person that have a wider mindset, looks and continuously invests. You may not necessarily be investing in the clinic, but are you investing in yourself? Even your local Dukawara sells unga, shukali, and then he learns of a new product that has come. He buys that product and he stocks it. Keeps up. Otherwise, a new shop will open, start selling all the newer things, and he will die. So when we talk about entrepreneurship in health, is yes, when you join medicine, you are joining a noble profession. It's a profession. But if you open a clinic, you have to pay bills. So it's a business. So you must teach yourself, you must have financial literacy. Because this is where now many times the rain starts beating us as doctors. Many of us don't know what is a debit and what is a credit. I told you I didn't like maths, and a lot of you are in that space. You don't like maths. Yes? The worst performed subject in medical school is usually statistics. Yes, biostatistics, as it said. Yeah. So, health entrepreneurship means that you get an entrepreneurial mindset. And you learn your clinic as a business. Yes, there is professionalism, there is ethics, there is integrity. But those do not, learning your clinic as a business does not preclude being professional, being ethical, having integrity. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Last question, and I'm sure on that specific topic we'll get a bunch of questions from the crowd. But how did you get into equity? $1 million question. And also, just maybe talk about equity afya. I think you could tie the business, healthcare, entrepreneurship to equity afya and the vision for that.
I have been asked that question so many times. How did I get into equity? I didn't, again, like a lot of the things I have told you, I didn't sit one day and decide I'm going to get into corporate sector. By chance, I needed some money to do a project. And I think a niece of mine told me she had gotten some money from a building society called the Equity Building Society. And she told me she will introduce me. But she gave me directions to where her account was. So she told me that you go up the stairs and there is a good corporate section. So I got to this Equity branch next to Jivaje Garden. I go and open an account. Next time I go, it was end of month, there was a queue going around the building. The city council workers were being paid. So I said, now what kind of a bank is this? Like, am I going to spend my whole day queuing here to get money?
What year is this?
That must have been just about complete 1989. Okay. Equity Building Society. So I go home and I literally forget about it. Then I meet this lady again. And she asked, did you get the money you're looking for? I said, that place I went, that queue was too long. He said, no, there's a corporate section for people like you. So we went in, and inside there was a mezzanine floor, which was a corporate bank. Now, where if you could keep an account of about 10,000 K, you can be served there. Nice place. You can get a cup of tea. So she introduced now into the corporate section. So I realized, this is a nice place. Then these guys tell me, look, if you want to pay your electricity bills, we can also pay for you. And you can even come after the doors have closed. Those days banks used to close at 2. You can come at 3 or 4. I felt, hey, this is quite different. I'm being treated like a VIP. So to cut a long story short, I went in and I got a little bit of the money that I wanted to do a project, and I started going there quite often. Within a short time, I got to know the manager. I got to know the CEO, and until one day the manager introduced me to the CEO of the bank that time, and then. So now I would go to the CEO, and I would withdraw my money in his office. I just write, then he calls one of the guys there, gives them the slip. I get my money there. So VIP treatment. So I really got interested in it. And then as he was talking, he was telling me, look, we need more professionals to bank with it. So I told him, look, I can organize for you to come and talk to some doctors. So I organized a dinner. He came to talk to, I gathered my friend doctors. He gave them a pitch. Nobody. But me, I continued to bank with them. I continued to get money. Not a single person. So he felt that he had really wasted his money because he had bought dinner and nobody. So I think it became, because I persisted, and I would go and get money, have a chat with him about what they are doing, and gradually, I got to understand their business model and what they wanted to do. So in 2004, they were changing from a building society to a bank. And so they were now starting issuing checkbooks and clearing house. And then he invited me to the launch, and then he asked, because I was going to a lot of their functions, and they were trying to do what they are calling investor briefing, so I would ask questions. just go to breakfast meetings, and it is an open forum. You ask questions. And I think I got to know a lot of the people there. So when it was Mida Bank, a few years later, the chairman then, I had known him, one day called me to his office. And during these interactions, I was treating quite a good number of these people. So the chairman called me and said, I know you are a very busy doctor, but would you have time to sit in our board? So I said, yes, I would have no problem sitting in your board. I will try and make time. I think that was 2015. So that's how I joined the board. And of course, if you join a board of a financial institution, you must literally have a very steep learning curve. Because even the language in the board is money. People are talking about interest rates, return on investments, yield curves. You're talking about what are assets, balance sheets, P&Ls. So of course I had to, sort of learn about these things. And then, at the go, fortunately, they organized some training for directors training, what do you do as a director? What do you look out for? So I had went some of that training. Some of them learned by Strathmore School. And within 2 years of my joining the board, the group reorganized. So we got Equity Group and now Equity Bank Kenya. The reorganization meant that the chairman of the group could not be the chairman of Equity Bank Kenya. So within 3 years, the third year, he had to resign by central bank rules. So I was very shocked when during one board meeting, the board members elected me as the chairman after 3 years. So once I became chairman of Equity Bank, I also became a member of the group board because Equity Bank is the biggest of the subsidiaries. Again, the chairman, after 3 years, now retired. He was 73 years. He retired completely. And the gentleman who took over from him was a Mzungu banker who was 72 years. Unfortunately, he was only chairman for 1 year because his health deteriorated during that 1 year. So again, I was elected as the chairman now of the group. So I had to resign as chairman of the bank and now become chairman of the group. So again, it's not something that I planned to become chairman of the group. It just worked, right?
I think value sells. What is it that? What do they see in you, Prof?
I have no idea. But I do my things. I do my work. I commit myself. I told you, don't overanalyze, don't overthink things. Very simple work. I prepare myself for the board meetings. Usually you have a lot of board paper. Maybe 1 week before the board meetings, you really have to sit down and read those papers. Because then the management is presenting, you need to be able to question, you need to be able to contribute intelligently. So I would spend quite a lot of time reading. And those papers reading also educated me about banking. Yeah. So I think that's what maybe, because I was spending my time reading and I could contribute. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was having a conversation about the fact that how you do one thing is how you do everything. Yeah. If you're an excellent doctor, you will be an excellent member of a board, right?
Yes, it's true, because your values, you don't put them in silos. They cut across. It's your life, it's your person, it's your personality. And that, by the way, Nyambura, it shows, and I tell doctors who work in public service, you can't be a good doctor in private sector and you're a bad doctor in the public service. If you don't apply yourself in the general clinic in the hospital, you will find that those bad traits that you're developing will show even in your private clinic with the time. But if you're an excellent doctor in the public space, you'll also be a good doctor, an excellent doctor in the private sector.
Yeah. Okay. Equity up, and then we open it up to the crowd.
Now, Equity Afia. So I am a doctor. I've joined the bank. I'm the group chairman. And just before I became the chairman, the Equity Foundation has a pillar. We have 6 pillars. One of the pillars is health. And that pillar was really to try and see how we can mitigate some of our customers, because our data showed that a lot of people that failed to keep up with their loans, many times they had a health event in their families. Maybe the principal person who took a loan. Remember, SMEs are owned by families. The principal member of that family fell sick, so they get loan arrears. So we started asking ourselves, how can we assist our members? Now remember that for a long time, Equity had the largest number of accounts in the country. For a long time, until now, we got Fuliza, and a lot of people now got accounts on account of Fuliza. So we thought about, why are these people not getting treated on time? It's because of affordability. It's because of access. It's because of quality of care. By the way, do we have any Equity scorers in this room? Any members of the Equity Leadership program? And there is another one there. There's another one there. And there's another one. Oh, yeah. And there's another one there. So when we started thinking about how can we maybe impact on the healthcare, like I said about the problems with healthcare, I didn't go into quality, but even in the private sector. So we said we have sponsored quite a good number of students through the Equity Leadership program to do medicine. And at this time, doctors had started finding it difficult to get jobs. You know, they were not being taken. So we said, maybe if we developed a franchise where we would get these doctors to, we train them in entrepreneurship, they run clinics. These clinics, we can control quality, we can control cost, we would make sure that they are accessible. So initially we got a grant from USAID, proof of concept. So we had 6 clinics. We had a lot of problems running those clinics, because the people that were given that concept, because it was donor money, they spent a lot of money setting up a clinic. And because they had NGO background, I'm sorry to say, because NGOs, they deceive. They don't know how, they don't create. So the money they got, they were just putting it without looking at sustainability. So the first 6 scorers really had a problem. And I used to have a breakfast meeting with them at least once in a month, just to keep their morale, for us to look at what can you do different. So when we realize it is the model, we change. And we got new people to learn the program. But the idea of the program, the Equity Afia program, is a franchise program. So the franchisor is the Equity Group Foundation. The franchisee are the doctors. The doctors own the clinics. So what we do is we help them set up the clinic. We provide them with finance, not free, it's a loan. But we train them. Then we provide them with the management of the whole, because they are using our brand, we have to protect our brand. So we have a director, we have quality control officers, we have marketing officers, we have finance officers who help them. So after this initial, when we change the model, they start making money. And now we made it mandatory for them to undergo entrepreneurship training. We now have modules for them. They are trained by finance officers. And then we have a central procurement system, which means they get economies of scale. And because of that economies of scale, their services are affordable. And we agree with them, they are not going to charge more than this. So when we did a survey, we found that the Equity Afya clinics can charge about 40% less than their equivalent clinics and give higher quality of care. Now, we started by saying we will only, even up to now, we are only giving the franchises to Equity Afya leadership alumni, people that have gone through the Equity Afya. They are scholars, they have been scholars. And the reason is, the way the Equity Leadership Program is run, this is the university program, not the Wings to Fly. The university program, we take the best girl and the best boy in every district. And then we support them, they choose what they want to do. So those that we take them through a mentorship program, where they are mentors through the bank, they work with the branches or they work with headquarters, they come back during the holidays. So we feel that we have inculcated in them certain values, so we can work with them to change the healthcare landscape. And that is the purpose of the Equity Afya program. Right now, we have 82 clinics spread all over the country. We are hoping by
how many? The 82 are run by how many doctors?
I don't have the actual figures. Some of the doctors have now 4 clinics. You can have, within a certain radius, you can have more than 1 clinic. We run them as a hub and spoke model, where you can have the hub, and then you can have spokes around that model. Now the spokes, you can get even clinical officers to work under you, but they feed the hub. Now, we have learned recently that a lot of these clinics break even within about 6 months. But it's because of that model. But we insist on quality, we insist on affordability, we insist on accessibility, so that when you choose somewhere, people can access you. Now, last year but one, we launched the Equity Life Insurance Company. This year, we are launching the Equity Health Insurance Company. So we are looking at our customers. We shall insure them for health. So when you get a loan, a little bit of that money will go into your health insurance. So if you got sick, you will go to the Equity Afya clinics. And the cost is controlled. The quality is controlled. So we are sure you are getting good health care. So that is the whole concept. And then we have the insurance, the life pension. The life insurance also has pension. So even you as an SME, a Juakali, you'll be able to save for your retirement. So you get a bouquet of services. So this is not just in isolation. It is a whole strategy.
You want to monopolize outpatient care?
No, it's 300 clinics. How many clinics are there in this country?
But your user base, if your user base accesses healthcare from Equity Afya, I mean, people can close shop.
No, nobody should. But the population is growing. What we want to do is set the standard and uplift, so that if you are competing with us and you have got a good standard healthcare, you will have to raise your standard. So in the process, it's not anybody closing, it's pulling everybody up. Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
Wow, and I didn't realize it's only for Equity Leadership Program.
Right now, but with time we shall open it up. We are developing the criteria so that you can apply. But for now, because we still got a lot of Equity Leadership alumni, yes, we are using them. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, interesting. Okay, we'll open it up for a few questions.
Yes, and I know you have to go and read for your cards.
So
So
we'll keep
it
light.
short.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, the hands are going up. If you have a question, just raise your hand and the mic will come.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Please introduce yourself and then ask the question.
Okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Wanjiku Ngigi. I'm a medical doctor by training. I've been practicing for the past 3.5 years, and I'm so thankful to be here. Given that I am passionate about so many things at the same time, this has been a very timely intervention for me. We're having a conversation with Nyambura earlier, and we're just talking about what we've gone into at this time. I have 4 questions. I'm really sorry. Maybe some of them will pick them up at a later date. Brief. So 1, you've talked about a major pain point in the healthcare system in Kenya. We have an acute shortage, artificial shortage of healthcare personnel, and that addresses one of the 7 pillars of health, right? So all these things that you've mentioned are things that we are aware about. When a patient doesn't afford healthcare, we know because they tell us they can't afford it. When they die in our care because our systems weren't working well, we know because we are within the system. So what do you have to say about doctors in top leadership, government leadership? Is this the time that we stop thinking so much about the hospital setup and rise above and own spaces in government and above leadership? That's the first question. Secondly, please give us 5 principles to live by for success. You're a successful man in many standards. I've been stalking you, sir. and I'm just curious, for you to have longevity, there is something you've been living by. And I am a huge fan of just those things to keep you going by. It's not money, sir. You don't need it, but we need it, but you get what I mean. What are the 5 that could explain this success? And thirdly, what do you think about people who are multi-hyphenated? Like multi-hyphenated meaning I want many things at the same time. I'm gifted in surgery. I can go into leadership. I love, OBS. I love ophthalmology. When is the right time to say you choose your specialty? There are people who are 30 and they're like, I still don't know what I want. And there are people in university and they're like, I want to be a neurosurgeon. So when do you think is the right time to kind of narrow down or funnel in? And then finally, and I don't know, I'm looking at the ratio of men to women in this room. We have passionate women, right? And they want to go into the helms of things. I know you're a gentleman, but think of us as daughters. What would you tell a daughter who wants to rule the world in a nice way, to control things in a nice way, to make change? What would you tell us? Thank you.
Good, many questions. Nyabura will remind me of them.
Yes.
Yes, but the first question was about leadership in healthcare. When I talk about entrepreneurship in healthcare, entrepreneurship does not only mean that you can make your impact in the clinical space. There are health entrepreneurs in different fields, policymakers, people who learn consultancies. There are entrepreneurs in research. You can be a health entrepreneur in research. And because you can grow your research so that you develop research that is used, people look out for. There are health entrepreneurs in digital health. They don't sit in clinics. Now, we need to get doctors into all those areas. Because she talked about, I chair a company called Savannah Informatics. Savannah Informatics
we didn't get a chance
was formed by 3 doctors, young doctors, and one of their friends who did commerce. Now, these 3 doctors, they were passionate about informatics. 2 of them went and did a master's in health informatics. They didn't go into clinical space. They were interested even when they were in medical school, playing around. They have made a lot of difference. I have mentored them for the last 10 years. And they are now one of the largest health informatics company These are doctors. Now, when you want to do, say, public health as a doctor, do you feel like you're doing the right thing? And I'll give you a story. A student whose father used to be a doctor whose father used to be my schoolmate came to me one day. She told me she wanted to do public health. But her father was bent on her being a cardiologist. So she asked me, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to kill the aspirations of my father? I told her, what do you feel? What is your heart telling you? And she told me public health. I said, go for it. I had a drink with the father, and I told him that this country needs doctors in policy-making positions. Finally, he reluctantly agreed. That girl today is a major policy maker. Now, the father is very proud introducing her. I tell you, because I've been where they are, he would not let anybody leave the place without mentioning all the things the doctor is doing. Do you understand? So we need doctors in major decision-making bodies. If you're not a good administrator, and that is the problem. When I was a medical officer in charge in Moyale, I was very young. Nobody had taught me anything. I was purely depending on the hospital administrator. He's the one who is telling me about per diems. It is very unfair on young doctors. Thrown into administrative jobs without training. So they fail, and that's part of why our healthcare system fails. These days, we are getting doctors who are training in health management, and those are the people who should be given those roles, and others be clinicians. Let everybody be where they are most comfortable and where they are competent in. Second question. 5 principles. I actually don't like putting things very neatly like that. And because I told you I'm a person of flow, I follow the flow. But there are certain basic values. All the principles, I actually call them values, just live by values. One is integrity. Second one is being honest. Third one is hard work. I always say hard work never kills anybody. In medicine, being ethical and professional. Now, you'll find that those values, they will help you in medicine, but they also help you in your daily life. Because who doesn't want somebody who has integrity? Who doesn't want somebody who is honest and hardworking? Do you understand? And you find that you will connect more with people when you are genuine and you are authentic. People quickly get to learn about you, that you are genuine, you are authentic. If you give me a handshake, it's a handshake, you mean it. If you give me a smile, it's an authentic smile, it's not a fake smile. Sooner or later they will know that you are fake. Do you understand? So being authentic, living by, and values in life, they are the same, they don't change. Do you understand? Yeah. It's really not a challenge. It's, you are gifted. That's why it's a gift. So the challenge usually comes in, how do you exploit these gifts? It's really managing yourself, first and foremost. You manage yourself, you manage your time. And you determine, because you can never do all the things equally, you determine what is my first priority. For me, my first priority in life is being a doctor. No, my first priority in life is being a husband and a father. That, nothing should take away that from me. But from a professional perspective, from my other involvement in medicine, in entrepreneurship, in the bank, medicine comes first for me. because that is my first love. Others have come later. Do you understand? And I will always have a soft spot for that. Whether I'm doing clinical medicine or whether I'm sitting in bodies that are determining policies, whether I'm sitting as a member of a WHO expert group, I'm sitting in those groups by virtue of my being a doctor. Yeah. So do the things. Now you talked also about choosing. What is the right time? But the right time is when you are ready. That is the right time for you. But remember that you have a biological clock. It doesn't wait for you. And there are certain things that you need to do. Right? So, for example, let me just give an example. You are a young lady. You finish medical school at what, 20? 25, like this, right? You are thinking about a family. You are thinking about specializing. You want to start a family, you want to get married, start a family, you want to specialize, and then you have other things. So you must look at those things. And when I talk about a biological clock, there's a certain time that certain things may not happen for you. So when you are planning that life, you remember that. Now, what is it that I need to do first? What is it that I can do concurrently? A lot of people have started families and subspecialized at the same time. My firstborn son was born three weeks before I started my postgraduate training. And my wife also started a postgraduate training at the same time. So we came from Meru with a 3-week-old baby. We don't have a house in Nairobi. We are looking for a house. We are staying with the relatives while we are looking for a house. With the 3 weeks old baby, staying with a relative. But we found a house. Both of us were students at the same time. And we are bringing up a baby. It didn't stop any one of us finishing our postgraduate training. And then after that, determining our priorities in terms of our careers. One person had to hold a little bit their career because now we have a family, and another person progressed faster. So those are sacrifices. It's a give and take in that space. Now, when I was talking, and I think Nyabura said about, look, how are things, you're getting married, all these things, how come? And as we are sitting here, we don't know whether a marriage will ever happen. But marriage will not happen if you have not prioritized it. If you have not purposed it, it will not happen. Now, you are about to finish medical school. In 10, 20 years to come, when you sit with your friends, you'll be saying, and I have had this. There was this guy who was really, and we ignored him. You say, that guy, he's now the so-and-so. Imagine that guy had the hit on me, but I ignored him. Do you understand? Those are things. Do you understand? What are you looking? That's why values are very important. What are the values are you looking for in your friends? In the kind of friendships that you want to nurture? What are the values? Now, if money is one of the values, you'll get lost. Yes? Now, I mentor young people. I speak to them. And sometimes, young people in early marriages and such things, and I get all this story about I can't get a good girl, they are not good boys. That's a lot of crap. There are a lot of good boys, there are a lot of good girls. Where are you looking for them? Where are you looking for them? Are you looking in the right place? Are you looking in the wrong place? Yes? What are your eyes open? Remember, the eyes see what the mind knows. How have you socialized your mind? Because if your mind is not well socialized, it will not see a good thing. So socialize your mind with the type of people that you want to come into your life. People who will affirm you. People who have the same values as you. Right? So the time is when it is right for you. deciding, for example, to go to a postgraduate, you know, after a certain time, even when you come to interview, people will say, you're too old. Where have you been for the last 20 years now? This is the time you want to specialize. So there is a time, there is a window when you can do a lot of these things. Yes? But you can do multiple things. I'm trying to tell you, you can get married and still specialize. Yes? You can get children and still your career goes up. You don't have to hold one for the other. Yeah.
Then the women, that's the last one.
Yes, the last one is what I would tell my daughter. I don't speak to my daughter as a girl. I speak to my daughter as one of my children. Because I have given her everything I have given her brothers. I have educated her the same way I have educated her brothers. Now, the best way for her to learn is to learn that her brothers have no privileges above her. Because you limit yourself the minute you start defining yourself as a woman. You are a doctor. Don't limit yourself by starting to think that I am a female doctor. First, you are a doctor. Do you understand? So, of course, you are going to be a doctor and you are going to be a wife. You can't be a husband. You are a doctor who is a wife. You are a doctor who is a mother. He is a doctor who will be a father. So, what I would tell you as my daughter is don't limit yourself. What you can do, you can do. But the first limitation is more in our minds than in reality. You understand? I will tell you, when I have supervised lots of students, some of the best students that I have supervised, who don't give me headaches, I'll tell you, any day, if I was asked, I would choose ladies. They are very focused, and mainly because sometimes they are the mother, they are the wife, so if we are going to have a meeting with them, we agree, you do this, they want to do it, because they have learned that they must work maybe harder than the man who, after we have met, he goes for a drink. Then that night, he goes home, has a hangover. The lady goes home, looks after the baby, puts the baby to sleep. Her mind is fresh. She may be a little bit tired, but she will put in 1 hour. The gentleman has been in the bar up to 1 a.m. Do you understand? So you can achieve, and I have seen phenomenal ladies, women achieving phenomenally. Yeah.
And your business partner is a woman?
Yes, I have the person we started our clinic with. Is it 29 years ago? She's a lady. We've been partners for 29 years. And we are equal. And she has contributed as much to the growth of that clinic as myself. Yeah.
Okay, next question, Alan.
Good evening, Professor Macharia. My name is Alan Were. I visited your clinic in 2020. I was then serving as the treasurer for Amsun, and we were seeking for money for our dinner. Mm-hmm. And I remember the warm welcome you gave us at your office, but what really stood out was immediately we were done selling our agenda, you just asked me for my M-Pesa number, and that's how you funded around 10 students. That's the number you quoted. You funded 10 students to come for the dinner then at Weston Hotel. And I really do appreciate that gesture. One of the things you mentioned was you looked forward to coming talk to medical students. And I'm here really happy that you made time, finally, 3 years later, but you came. I have 2 questions for you in that regard. When I came to your clinic, I found a mannequin for the ENT. I think I'm sure you didn't get it around here in the country. But lately, as I was reading through the Equity Group day-to-day, through the Business Daily, you took over from David Ansel as the chairperson for Equity Group Holding. And I don't know, how does your day look like being the chairperson for that busy bank in the country, as well as being the best ENT surgeon I think I know so far in the country? And from what I saw in your clinic, it's such a busy clinic at Nairobi Hospital, and I know that your patients also need your attention and time. I don't know how your day looks like. And then my last question for you is, suppose you had a business background early enough in medical school, do you think you would still have been an ENT surgeon? And if that's the case, being a medical student and someone else who may also have an interest in business, would you advise someone to stop the practice and join in consultation? For instance, in the consulting firms such as McKinsey, BCG, PwC, because I know, let me give an instance, like Goldman Sachs, they only hire doctors and engineers to be their accountants, like the people who work in Goldman Sachs in the UK. So here, like in the Kenyan setting, with top accounting firms or maybe audit firms or managerial firms like McKinsey, if you had that background early enough, do you think you'd have been an ENT surgeon, or would you advise a young person right now with a business background to explore options of stopping practice and diverging into consulting firms? Really, those are my two questions.
Yeah, I'll start with the second question. Again, I'll go back to the fact that where is your heart? I know doctors who are working with McKinsey, even local, and I have had that discussion with some of them wanting to join McKinsey as consultants in their healthcare business. And I do encourage them. Because if that is where your strength lies, yes, join.
But ask the question, because you are jack of all trades. You're running a clinical practice, and you're also a chairperson of a group holding that is actually one of the biggest banks in the country. So there's a conflict of interest in this case. Because as she asked, someone is in your shoes, they want to be in the consulting fields, they have a deep interest in it. They're also doing medicine at the same time. So it's like an open heart in different places, and it's a hard time settling on both. Now, you find it easy because you're doing both. So that's why I really needed your microscopic view on it as an ENT surgeon, yeah.
If, for example, when I was in medical school, I had opportunities to do, join, if there were McKinseys those days, they weren't there. And if at that time my heart was in it, maybe I would have done, by the way, public health is one of the other things that I had considered doing because of my interest in management, my interest in leadership at that time. But I didn't have that, so I didn't have those opportunities, so I won't speculate. But for that person who is finishing medical school now, and you feel that you have an analytical mind that likes to write reports, dissect, provide certain solutions, but you don't feel like clinically you are very engaged, you are very interested in seeing one patient after another, because that's why many people go to public health and they feel they don't want to treat individuals. They want to deal with communities. And that is where their strength is. By all means, join. Because the accountant, the auditor who has a medical background sees a healthcare organization differently. And that is the same thing with the health informatics. We have a lot of people who are good in IT. They are software developers. Sometimes they don't understand the patient's journey. When you tell a medical doctor who has skills in IT, you tell them, look, I want you to digitize the process that a patient goes through in the clinic. You don't need to talk to him twice. He imagines how the patient gets registered, sees a patient, the doctor makes the diagnosis. You need the differential diagnosis. Then the doctor sends the patient for tests. So he'll put tests there. The results come. How do the results get to me? How does the doctor make the final diagnosis? Sometimes then they will say they will incorporate protocols so that if you are seeing a patient, you can click on diabetes protocol and you see what does the government of Kenya what is the protocol for managing diabetes in Kenya? Now, because he has that background, so your medical training provides you a background and provides you a head start in a certain area which somebody else who went through computer science school may not have. So you use your medical training as your base, then you can go into almost anything else. I think the second question was about sitting. I took over from David. David Ansel used to be the CEO of Citibank in Kenya. Remember, Citibank is one of the biggest. So he was a banker by background. Now I'm coming in to fill his shoes. I am a medical doctor. But look, when you are board chairman, you are providing strategic leadership. You are providing oversight. You are not the banker. You have technical people to do the banking business. So your skills must be in leadership, must be in governance, must be in strategic thinking. Nowhere do I need to go to banking school. But you must have a mind, like I told you, I read papers before the meeting, to understand, to have a rough idea what the IT director wants the board to do, what the risk manager or the risk director wants the board to do. But I don't need to understand the 10 or 12 types of risk in detail. But I can tell you the 12 types of risk. I can tell you, if I'm looking at the finances, I'll be able to say, where are we? Is the management making the right decisions, say with regard to rise in interest rates? What about the risk, say, to banking now? And last 2 months, we had the failure of a bank in the US. Will that crystallize in Kenya? And if it will crystallize in Kenya, what does the management need to do? That's my role as a board chair, to ask the difficult questions to the management. What is your plan if that risk that led to the collapse of a bank in the US crystallizes in Kenya? That is my role. So I just have to be able to think broadly. I need to think about the governance. I need to think about the oversight. Yes, and I need to really think about, when we are hiring people, are we hiring the right people? Are they fit for purpose? Do they align with the purpose of the group? Because the group has a purpose. For example, our purpose is to transform lives and help in transform life and assist in creation of wealth. So when we talk about transform lives, how do we transform lives? It's not just by thinking about profit and loss. It's thinking about impact at the individual level, the community level. And that's why we spend a lot of money in Wings to Fly, in leadership program, in energy programs. So all those I must see how, as a chairman of the bank, how are we living to our purpose? Management is paid bonus at the end of the year, so they may just want to have a large bottom line. But that is not the sole purpose why we exist. It's not a large bottom line. It's to transform life and be impactful. Yeah. That's my role, to embody that purpose and make sure that the people who are working in the organization, they live to that purpose. To make sure that everybody is living to the corporate culture that we have developed, which is based on certain values. Yeah. I hope I have answered your question. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I think one more. There was one more hand, or maybe the question was answered. Okay, looks like. Then I'll. Okay, Nyakeo, and that's the last one. It's a pity we haven't spoken about your health informatics. Maybe you'll give just a tip. I think that's an important topic. Nyakeo.
Sorry. Okay, my name is Nyakeo. I'm an incoming level 5 here at the
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good question, but a difficult question. I think maybe because I always say I'm entrepreneurial. I have invested in a lot of areas, a good number of which have failed, and sometimes they have not failed because of my inability, but because you are dependent on people, you are coming together with people, and what that has taught me is that when you do certain investments, you always must think that it can fail. And if it fails, what will be its impact on your life? Because that is very important, that you must be able to absorb the shock from that investment. A lot of people, their life gets completely derailed because an investment fails. Because maybe they have put everything into that investment. Is to be careful, define your risk appetite. And your risk appetite must be defined by what are you able to absorb, what kind of failure. Today, I may come and tell you, when you invest in this particular scheme, you'll get a return of 70%. But if you invest in another one, it's 10, 15%. How do you make your mind that you invest in the one that gives you 15 and you forgo the one that gives you 70? Because maybe you have 1 million shillings. The one that gives you 70% means that most likely the risk is higher. So if you lose that 1 million shillings, what does it mean to you? The one that gives you 14, the risk is much lower. You go and buy government bonds. They are likely to fail unless you go the gun away and the government declares that all those bonds you are holding. How many times does that happen in history? So you'd say government bonds are very low risk, but guaranteed return. What about the Ponzi schemes? If you are maybe one of those that gets in early, you'll get your 70%. If you are layer 2, chances of you getting money are 0, but they will have told you they can double your money. So those are some of the decisions, and those are decisions that sometimes you learn the hard way. The second thing is having a healthy relationship with money. It's a very important thing. And having a healthy relationship with money is being able to determine what is very important. What is the value of money? If I give you 1,000 shillings, that money will be valuable to you depending on what you can buy to it. If I go to Geshagi and somebody asks me for money and I give them 1,000 shillings, it will mean school fees for their child. So for them, the value of that 1,000 shillings is very high. For you, the value of 1,000 shillings, maybe go to, what do you call this place where you buy chicken? Yes? You go and buy chicken, have chips, have a soda, or go for a movie, or go for a drink. That is the value. But the amount is the same, but the value is different to different people. So having a healthy relationship with money is very important. And remember, money is not an end in itself. Money facilitates you. It enables you. So, and the problem with an unhealthy relationship with money is where we pursue money for the sake of money. Where we think money is everything. Where we trash relationships because of money. So that healthy relationship of money, to me, I think is very, very important. It is how I am able to maintain my relationships with my friends, with my family, with the doctors that I work with in the clinic. Because of that, I consider I have a healthy relationship with money. Now, that also helps me in terms of burnout, because I'm not going to burn myself out looking for money. If I burn out, I'll burn out because I'm doing too many things. But with the time, I have learned how to balance out. I balance out my social life, I balance out my professional life, I balance out my spiritual life, right? I balance out my family responsibility. And one of the, to come back to, is it Jackie? Yes? What Jackie had asked, living by, is generally in life, if you learn to do things by moderation, you will not go wrong. Everything, including food, is bad if taken in excess. Religion is bad if you become radicalized. But you can have a healthy dose of religion, a healthy dose of food, a healthy dose of everything. Moderate. Doing things in moderation helps you. You don't have to overthink things, because you don't get into those extremes. All right? So, and doctors are said to be at very high risk of burnout, mainly because of we don't balance our lives. Spending time in casualties, spending time in theater, excess time, means that there is an aspect of your life that you're not taking care of. Take care of all aspects. Take care of yourself. Take care of your health. Take care of your relationships. They have a role to play in your life. The balanced life. Yeah. Thank you.
Wow, those are such gems. Last question before we close about health informatics, because you chair Savannah Informatics, which is a really big company in the digital health space. Do you think, so first of all, why health informatics? What warrants it in terms of the gaps that you spoke about? But also now with your finance hat, do you think the leapfrog effect we've seen in digital technology on finance anytime soon, do you think we're going to see that in health? And what will it take? And how can we be the people to drive that?
I have had an interest in digital health for a long time. Maybe 20 years ago, I commissioned somebody to develop a health information system for my clinic. And I used it maybe for about 5 years, and then got somebody else to upgrade it. That was in DOS. You guys don't even know what is DOS. That was the original computer language. And one of the attraction that I get from now what we call health informatics is the role it can play to inject efficiency in healthcare. When I was talking about the resources that are put in healthcare, part of the reason that they are not enough is lack of we learn very inefficient healthcare systems. And this is both in private and in public spaces. You could reduce maybe the cost of healthcare 30 to 40% just through efficiencies, increased efficiencies. So I have had a lot of interest in that. My clinic became paperless more than 15 years ago. And again, the system I use up to today, I commissioned it. And I invested in that company. That company didn't succeed because it was run by somebody, but I was left with a very good health information system. So when these 3 young doctors came to me, they had just come and they had started a company. They were having huge problems. They had a vision, they had the ideas, and we sat with them and they said, can you mentor us? Can you help us? They didn't have, they were running very low on resources, and they asked you, can you invest in this company? And for me, it was a no-brainer. They are doing something that I would have done if I had the technical skills, digitizing health. The idea this time was the fact that a lot of doctors lose money because insurance companies misappropriate, or they don't pay for the invoices the doctors raise, because these are paper invoices. So the insurance company goes and misplaces those invoices. Then they tell the doctors, we haven't received your invoice. We can't reconcile. You didn't send an invoice. You didn't send a claim form. So the original idea was to digitize the insurance claim process. It was not as easy that time. It requires you get engineers. But because I had suffered that, and I can tell you, even up to today, doctors in private healthcare, those that may be correct, 60% of their revenues are doing very well. Doctors lose a lot of money because of the inefficiencies in the system. So this was a system that was going to make sure that a doctor sees a patient, he clicks on the invoice, is a consultation 2,000, it goes directly to the insurance company. And it shows, like your WhatsApp message, that it has been read. So nobody will come and tell you you never sent it. And even at the end of the day, you can see I billed Jubilee Insurance 10,000. I billed UAP 5,000. At the end of the month, you just go and click, and everything comes. You send them a statement. They pay you money, and it is deducted from that account. So it brings in efficiency. That's why I got interested in Savannah informatics, and I'm happy to say that that has revolutionized. Yes, the insurance claim for doctors, those who have subscribed to it. Yes. Mm. Yep.
And then compare the fintech.
Yes. Now the leap that has been made, say, in financial. By fintechs in the financial world, I believe we can have it in healthcare space. Now, doctors by nature are conservative, and that's why we are lagging behind. Doctors by nature are very conservative, and that conservatism comes from our training. You can't jump onto every new drug. You need to have it proven, because it has such effects. If it doesn't work, the effect on your patient, if there is a new intervention, you want to make sure that intervention has been tried a few times before you adopt it. So doctors are not early adopters of technology. But that is changing, because you people are all digital natives. So even in your practices, you carry that DNA of being digital natives. You want things to be on the fast lane. Everything you want to do on your tablet, you want to do it on your phone. So you are going to be the people that will make that leap, that will come to the financial space. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So all those startup ideas, we hope we see them, and here's a potential investor. Yeah?
Yes, I am a sucker for such, so yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So bring your
But I would
pitch
not, if you have, just come. We'll discuss with you. Yes. Mm.
Yeah, okay. So in closing, Prof, I think encourage these young people, us young people, maybe just tell us what if you are in, knowing what you know now and understanding the environment that we are in. I think it hasn't come up here, but there is generally a lot of despair. People desperately trying to leave the country, doctors. So knowing what you know, what would you say to 24, 25, 26, 27-year-old you? And then encourage us as we close this talk.
Maybe what I tell young people is there is always light at the end of the tunnel. Always. There's no night that doesn't lead to a dawn. Everybody's dawn is on a different day. Your dawn is coming. But look, if you don't wake up in the morning, you can't see the dawn. So every day, you must wake up to look for that dawn. You must look up to see the dawn. You must also adopt a positive attitude to situations. Yes, it is difficult. You are going to be intern, some of you, next year. And then first to become an intern will take you 6 months. 6 months after you have finished and you have celebrated the title doctor, you are completely broke. You become an intern, after 1 year, you have no job. You have to look for it. You can't find it. You can't sleep and say it will not find you there. Differentiate yourself. When you get a locum somewhere, do that locum like your whole life depends on it. I am an employer. You give locum, you give internships to people, even in the office. A good number of those interns that come to our office, many times some of them will end up being employed there. Why? They distinguished themselves. When you come as an intern, you are paid maybe some allowance, some stipend. It's not much money. Maybe gets you home. But if you come and work, like your life depends on it, when a vacancy arises in that organization, you are the one who will get to that organization. You do locum somewhere, you distinguish yourself, they will look for you. They will remember Jackie. How did she do her work? So, work. Exhibit those values. What are people looking for? Exhibit them. Be humble. Humility. As you have become a doctor, and then you start thinking, I'm God's best gift to mankind. So you are strutting all over the hospital. No respect for the person who cleans. No respect for the nurses, because they are not doctors. Those nurses, when they know there is a vacancy somewhere, will they call you? Your opportunities are around you. And I can assure you, you will find those opportunities. Do you understand? So, I will not despair. It may take you a little bit longer. But surely you have not gone through medical school. You have learned clinical medicine, but you have also learned life skills. If the only thing you have learned in medicine is clinical skills, how to take temperature, do 1, 2, 3, then you have missed. You have missed a lot. Life skills. You guys are all gifted people. That's how come you are in medical school. That's how come you are in 5th year. But you can restrict those gifts to just looking at life through the tunnel of medicine. Look at why. Open your eyes. Scan the whole landscape. And you find lots of opportunities. Now, in my language, there's a saying that it described a lady who went to the shamba and found, while she was in the shamba, something was dropped. And she picked it up. But the saying is, she only picked that good thing because she was already in the shamba. So how will you seize these opportunities if you are folded out, despairing, feeling bad for yourself, just flipping through TV channels, morning to evening? You must go out there, because that's where the opportunities are. That's what I would like to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Yeah, this has taken so much longer than we anticipated, but it was worthwhile. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I know it's a tight time. Everyone is rushing to do last-minute reading, but Prof, this was a really, there's no words to describe, really. So many people, I can imagine, want to sit with the chairman of Equity. And so that you spared 2 hours or more, 3 hours to be with us is really, we're so blessed. So I'll invite Castro, who is yes, please.
May I just start by wishing you, those of you who are sitting cards tomorrow, those of you who are sitting exams next week. Some of you we shall meet during your ENT exams. But I wish you all the best. Put your best foot forward. Those who are still in medical school has some time. Take time to learn life skills. They'll come in handy when you leave medical school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Castro, please. Castro is the Secretary General of the University of Nairobi Students' Council. So he'll say a word and then invite Ndusi. Thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful having this conversation.
Thank you, Nyambula. Thank you so much, Professor. I know I'm a strange face, but we met somewhere at your office. Like Alan, I also came to look for money. Prof has always been very supportive to students. And I'm glad that Chairman Meleta leo at least akuje tuonge person to person. I don't have much to say. I know the year is coming to a stressful end, and as coming together to sit, share, and maybe listen to words of counsel. Si kila siku inafaa kuwa masomo, every day. Labda nyota yako si masomo. Labda nyota yako ni kuwa Equity Group chairperson, but you never know. Thanks a lot, Chairman, once again, for always bringing in insightful speakers to come engage us in these conversations. And I have noticed a very encouraging